All right, welcome to Destination the Show, episode 20. Jamie Cameron, as always, here with my guy, Jeremy Nygaard. Jeremy, what's good, man? How are you?
It's cold and I hate cold, but
It's really
it
cold.
seems like we're getting out of that, so that'll be good. What's new with you? I mean, you look cold right now.
Dude, it's been bad. This week has been painfully slow baseball, hot stove, and painfully cold weather. Being out at the bus stop with my daughter in -20 wind chill is just, I'm a delight.
Okay, before you complain about being out at the bus stop, how long are you out of the bus stop?
How long am I out there?
Yeah,
Like a range of like 4 to 8 minutes.
okay, so every morning, literally every morning that we have children at school, I am outside welcoming all the kids that get dropped off by parents.
Yeah.
And I go out at about 7:43 ish, and I walk back in the building at about 8:30.
I don't miss those days, man. Not at
So your little bus stop, handful of minutes.
all.
You get
my
no
my
sympathy. No sympathy.
my adorable few minutes at the bus stop.
Yeah, yeah, it's cute.
Um,
It's cute, Jamie.
yeah, it's brutal, man. It's brutal. We are dying for some Twins news, and so today we decided to take matters into our own hands, right? So we're going to talk hypothetical Twins trades for starting pitching. Um, but we do have some things to get to first. First and foremost, we got a couple of housekeeping things to do here. Tom Froming fanzine did our first ever giveaway on our last episode. Thanks for folks who got in amongst it with that. You know what I figured out, Jeremy, was the
Oh,
problem with this giveaway that we did.
what was the problem?
It's not useful to give away something that everybody's already purchased.
That's that's true.
Everybody already has one.
Well, you know what?
Anyway,
We should next time we got to do next time Tom makes one of these or we have something to give away, we gotta get it early. We gotta
yep.
be cool enough to get it early.
Well, there you go. Advanced copies.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that idea a lot. However, we do have winners, and I do believe at least two of these folks are regular listeners and question askers of the show, so that makes me happy. So, Michael Goodell, hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, who's always super in the weeds with interesting questions on Twitter. Josiah Waldner. And I don't have a name for the third person, just a Twitter handle. It's at jpartay, Partay. Amazing. So the three of you guys won. We're gonna get one of these excellent fanzines, courtesy of Tom. That's a review of the Twins 2023 season out to the three of you. Make sure you're accepting DMs because I'm going to ask you for your address or an address to get it sent out. So look for that soon. More giveaways on the horizon when Z number 2 hits.
Do it.
We also need to talk more about sushi because sometime in the middle of the week, you sent an email to producer Theo and I with your food menu, the Nygaard family food menu for the week, which had on it in all its resplendent glory homemade sushi for the Packers game.
Yeah, Packer party.
Packer
Homemade
party.
sushi.
Are you a Packer fan? You're not, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
I think you're a Jags fan.
I am. And so, but my mother-in-law for Christmas, she gives all the males like the same things, and
Okay,
all of her sons are Packer fans.
I see.
So I got a Packer shirt. I never wore a Packer shirt in my life until Sunday, and then look what happened. I was in a fantasy football playoff game where I had three Cowboys.
Hmm.
Um, so when the Cowboys were scoring, that was great for me. I'll wear the Packer shirt. I'll cheer for CeeDee Lamb to catch a touchdown pass, which he didn't do because Jake Ferguson was catching all the touchdowns.
That's right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean,
My Badgers.
I'll put the Packer shirt back on this week and try to bring some luck. Um, because even not a Packer fan, I mean, everybody that I work with is pretty much a Packer fan. So
Yeah, that
um,
makes sense. Your Jacksonville Jaguars fan origin story is something we're gonna have to dig into at another time. But don't want to bury the lead. Homemade sushi was made, and I think we got photos. Okay,
Yeah.
so walk us through this, man. Walk us through the process
So I feel like
here a
that's
little bit.
not the first. The first photo is the one that Theo had up originally. Yeah. So we're making the rice, right? We had some sausage for breakfast that morning. You see that over on the right hand side. Um,
Yeah,
so it's like special sushi rice that gets sticky.
I see.
So now if we go to the next picture, you gotta cut up your food. So we got the sticky rice there. We got the cucumbers, the avocados, the crab delights.
Wait, did you like
Oh,
place is that like a little bonsai tree in the background to like add to the effect of sushi making right there?
no,
And the
no, my wife she's a decorator. And then the two little cups of water so she can keep her fingers moist to oh,
wow,
and then you see the wraps right there, the seaweed wraps.
this is real pro stuff.
Yeah, boom.
That looks like 60 grade sandpaper. Go on.
And then I think next, let me see the next one. Yeah, so you lay out the rice, and then you lay out the cucumber and the crab and the avocado, and then you use those fancy, I don't know what they're called, wooden things, bamboo things, to roll them up, and then you
Right
gotta
on.
you gotta wet them down, and then you get the finished product. Next picture,
Wow, there it
boom.
is.
So that wasn't a great picture because we took them to the Packer party. We wanted to keep them cold. We stuck around at the Packer party to keep them cold and put them outside. It was like -100. So
This
that's frozen sushi right there. But the effect is still there. I mean, that's put some yum yum sauce on it, with sprinkle with some soy sauce, and
I'm a
slide it down
bit
the gullet.
I'm kind of disappointed because I was really hoping for something that didn't look even edible, let alone like good. This looks good to me. So I'm a little disappointed. You've crushed my spirit a little bit. I was hoping for something worse looking. That looks
I mean,
great, man.
if it's worse looking, we're not gonna get the kids to eat it.
Yeah,
And then
sure.
my wife found two different types of I don't know if they're called shells or wraps or whatever, paper. Um, and one was like a hotter version, which wasn't really
Okay.
that much hotter. Um, but that was it. That's how we roll.
Wow. I will never doubt you again until the next time you give me cause to doubt you. Um,
Fair.
all right. Enough homemade sushi talk. Despite the Twins completely frozen, literally off season, there are baseball teams doing interesting things. One of whom is the Chicago Cubs, who swung I'm going to call it, yes, a big trade this week. This is a significant trade. So definitely want to get your thoughts on this. Full trade was with the LA Dodgers. The Dodgers sent Micahel Busch and Yency Almonte to the Chicago Cubs for left-handed pitcher Jackson and Jeremy Nygaard favorite Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this one, man? Curious for your
Yeah.
take.
So I mean, I'll start with Zaire Hope. I was high on him when they drafted, and I didn't love the Cubs draft, but
Mm-hmm.
when they took him either around 10 or around 11, wherever that was, I think around 11, I was like, that's the type of guy that the
Yeah.
Cubs need to add. Low floor, high ceiling, exciting prospect. They
Mm-hmm.
can be patient with him, right? The Cubs have the means to do that, but really like a lottery ticket guy. At some point, if his trajectory is going the way that you'd like it to go, I mean, he could be a top. I mean, maybe not top 100. But you can't put a cap on these guys. Low
Yep.
floor, high ceiling. So that's going to be a great thing for probably the best development system in baseball, right? You
Mm-hmm.
take an athlete and let him develop into what would be a leadoff hitter, and that's great for the Dodgers. Obviously, Ferris. I'm a big fan of Jackson Ferris. In my opinion, he's maybe the highest variance pitcher in all of the minor leagues. Right?
Mm,
There's a chance that he could fizzle out and never do anything, but there's also the chance that he could be the best pitching prospect in baseball in the
mm-hmm.
in the next 18 months. And if he's in that that development system, the this all tilts towards he's going to be really good, right? Because I mean I think I jokingly either on here or to you called him Clayton Kershaw light,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't and that's not fair. It's never fair to hang a Hall of Fame comp on a 19-year-old. But it's the exact place that he's going to have the opportunity to be a superstar. And
Yeah.
this could look really, really, really good for the Dodgers. Obviously, they gave up Micahel Busch, who's the best prospect in the deal, and has the ability to hit, but they didn't really need him. And so
Mm-hmm.
they could turn right now assets into future assets, which, as the Dodgers develop them, they turn those assets now into superstars by trade or by development. So I don't dislike the deal for either team, um, and good for both for lining up and getting good players.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I pretty much agree with your take on it. I think I like this deal a little bit more for the Cubs. But I think all your points about the Dodgers and the Dodgers' ability to develop athletes, especially, they have a great track record with that, are really well taken. Right? Like if we subbed the Dodgers for another organization that didn't have this track record of developmental success, and we might say, I don't know, like that's too like I don't
Absolutely.
know what right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
but
100%.
like just hearing the word Dodgers or like maybe Rays has you feeling like, wow, they have a great chance to make something of at least one of those players. I think this is a good deal from the Cubs' perspective. Their system is ridiculously deep. Baseball Prospectus 101 came out yesterday, I think. They had 9 Cubs on their top 101. I think that is going to be the list that's the most generous to them, but the point stands. I think they had 5 of the top 50 in Baseball America's list. So the system's absolutely loaded. They knew that Busch was going to be moved. Busch is blocked by like a million great players and kind of MVP candidate type guys in the Dodgers, and they have a roster crunch. So they just lined up really nicely. Almonte probably fits into the like upper middle part of the Cubs bullpen, but he's like a usable arm. He's been inconsistent. But the Cubs essentially are getting 2 pieces they're going to use right now and giving away 2 pieces to the Dodgers who they aren't going to use right now, but have the ceiling to potentially be great. So
The
exciting.
one thing that we'll never know, but is always super fascinating to me, is like the market around Micahel Busch.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodgers don't trade him without at least talking to other teams, right? And so I would guess in baseball, the demand for a prospect like that is high. Like, what teams would be like, yeah, we're good?
Mm-hmm.
They went out and got guys that they
Yeah.
wanted for him.
Yep.
And Jackson Ferris and Zaire Hope stock go up just because the Dodgers wanted those guys.
That's right.
And then their stock goes up more because, like you talked about, how their track record of development is phenomenal.
Right. And I mean, we talked about giving the Cubs props for knowing that Busch was going to be moved. You got to give the Dodgers props for lining up with an organization where the prospect depth is so ridiculous, that Ferris is readily available and really doesn't put a dent in the system, other than the fact that in general there's kind of a dearth of left-handed pitching like really good left-handed pitching prospects in baseball anyway. Like I think Pipeline released their top 10 today, and I think Ferris was number 8. But to your point, if we came back to that next year, he's probably either like top 3 or not on the list at all.
Exactly.
So I thought that was a great trade. I thought they lined up nicely. It was exciting to have news to talk about. I'm really excited to see Busch get a shot, get a bats. Obviously, the Minnesota connection is there, so I was going to root for guys from home. So I'm excited.
Now, let me ask you this: where does he fit? Like, where is he going to play? Because he's going to play, right?
He is going to play. That's a great question. I'm guessing they'll use him relatively flexibly around the infield. I'm not 100% sure if they have him locked down defensively to a position yet or not.
Because what his presence does is blocks somebody else who maybe wasn't blocked before.
Mm-hmm. For now.
So that it'll be fascinating to see how the Cubs progress here too, because like you said, all the prospects, and they're going to be a competitive team. Like they can now move more prospects or prospects that were further away for guys that are closer.
Yeah.
Like that's what they did with this trade, and really they could continue to do that and just keep bolstering. It's just everything's so slow and frustrating.
That's brutal, dude. So Theo comments the Fangraphs, excuse me, has him projected as the Cubs' primary first baseman. So that's interesting. I mean, you're absolutely right. And there's a couple of organizations, and it's really like come into sharper focus for me with seeing BP's 101, Baseball America's list, Pipeline's list is coming out, right? They're all different, but they all show similar trends. The Cubs are one example. I think the Orioles are another example. At some point soon here, you almost have like an embarrassment of riches in your farm system, especially true for the Orioles, I think, such that like for Baltimore, go trade for a starting pitcher. The amount of like top 100-ish infield prospects you have, like go get somebody you think is going to be great, whether that's Cease, like not for me, or someone. If you're not going to spend, go trade for someone because you have beyond the capital to do that. And I'm really curious how that plays out with the Cubs because it does seem like they're still kind of like the front runner for Bellinger. They are going to, it looks like, target one spendy bat. And then after that, they're competing for the NL Central. They don't have a ton of really obvious holes. And so I think they're less likely to move guys, but they are really absolutely loaded at the moment.
So what are we waiting for? Like before it was Ohtani's going to be the guy, and then it was the other Japanese pitcher was going to be.
Yeah.
What's the holdup? Is it the Diamond Sports? Is that the holdup? I mean, that's only 11, 12 teams.
I think it is, yeah. And like I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole, one, because it'll take us too long, at two, because I'm gonna keep it real with you, man. I find the TV deal stuff so confusing at the moment. Like literally and the Twins are in a unique position, right? Because their contract with Bally has expired, whereas it seems like per news today, Amazon invested a stake in Diamond Sports that teams that have 1 year left are going to have their games streamed on Amazon this forthcoming season. I don't think the Twins are in that bucket yet, but producer Theo knows more. Producer Theo knows more about this than us.
So
let me just ask this question first. Okay. The Twins streaming rights never belonged to Diamond.
It expired at the end of this year.
But they never had streaming rights because you couldn't buy the package. So who has the Twins streaming rights?
I think Major League Baseball.
So then why weren't they on MLB last year, like with the other teams?
Because they still had their contracts in agreement through the end of the 2023 season, and like how the NHL and NBA is playing out with the Bally contracts right now, they just kept it going through the entire year instead of having to reinvigorate and create this new idea of not have the same situation as what we saw with the Padres and the Diamondbacks, where the league had to absorb them because of where their contract was at.
All right, so Theo, help me understand. Like I don't know why, but for whatever reason, my feeble brain is struggling to wrap itself around this. What is your best understanding of the situation that the Twins are in right now with their TV setup for next year?
So ideally, because of where I live and what I do for a living, covering the local news, we are in a weird spot where we got in the Rochester area. We're close enough to lacrosse. We've been blacked out of Brewers and Twins games from MLB.TV and other broadcasts. And then our Northern Iowa viewership that we go cover, they're blacked out from 6 teams, including the Twins, Brewers, Cubs, White Sox, Royals, Cardinals. It's insane.
That is insane.
So I'm hoping to get a story put together once there's some more clarity this spring for our viewership to explain, hey, if you're a fan of this team, here's how you're going to be able to watch them. So I reached out to a source with the team today, and they said to me they're still reacting to this news because if you were somewhat up to date on the bankruptcy hearings that the Twins were taking part in, they were supposed to be at this hearing down in Houston on Friday. Now that hearing postponed indefinitely. We don't know what's coming. So the individual I spoke with the team today said this doesn't really change anything. It's just another option on our table. We are just learning as much as everyone else right now. So I don't think we're going to get anything before Twins Fest, unfortunately, or at Twins Fest of like, here's what we're going to do. I think this just, if you saw some of the quotes of what was in The Athletic today from Evan Drellick's piece, it's going to make things more convoluted. And these teams that are affiliated with Bally, they're going to be in this limbo probably till opening day or close to, which sucks that it's dragging itself out. But solutions are there for some teams. For others, who knows?
Brutal.
I don't like it.
But let's talk about stuff we do like, as in mock trades. Good transition, right?
That was a great segue. Okay, so let's talk trades. Here's what we're gonna do to unfreeze the frozen hot stove. We are going to each pitch a mock Minnesota Twins trade, and the only real criteria that we gave each other. So we're coming in blind. We do not know. I think Theo has a clue, but we do not know each other's trade candidates or trade packages yet. So this is going to kind of be live reactions. The only criteria that we arrived at were it has to be a trade for a starting pitcher. It has to be a significant trade, given that that's kind of one of the two big remaining question marks, right? Is someone you would feel comfortable starting a playoff game. So we're going to take it in turns. I guess I'm going to go first, then Jeremy, then Theo. The person who's traded is going to take a couple of minutes to pitch their trade. And then we will just kind of react and finish up by hopefully arriving at one that we most prefer. You guys ready to get into it?
Let's go.
Yeah, all right for him, man.
I'm gonna do like a B Rabbit in 8 Mile situation and tell you about all the reasons you're gonna hate my trade first, before I say it, because I think mine is gonna be panned by the majority of people. I will start by telling you my trade target is Mariners starting pitcher Logan Gilbert. I wrote about him this week at Twins Daily. I'm going to plug that piece because I liked it. But let me throw out some stats from this 2023 season. 190 innings pitched, 385 FIP, 3.2 FWAR. Doesn't really walk anybody, 4.7% walk rate. That's 1.7 per 9 innings if you're more inclined towards that stat. Strikes out.
I'm going to pull up his baseball savant page.
There we go.
A little more visually stimulating.
There we go. Strikes out just on 25% of hitters. That's around 9 per 9. Contract situation for Gilbert. There we go. Look at us embracing technology. Contract situation. He's 26 years old. He is not a free agent until 2028. So he's mega under team control. Unique traits that I would like to point out. Gilbert has really incredible extension, best in baseball at that, meaning his ability to get down the mound and release the baseball closer to home plate. Adds about 2.2 miles an hour to his fastball. You can read all about that in my piece of Twins Daily this week. So a couple of caveats and like discussion points, then I'll give the trade package, and then I want to hear you guys' thoughts. So I didn't go for like feasibility here. I don't think it's incredibly likely that the Mariners would trade Gilbert or any pitching at the moment. So this trade proposal is predicated on them adding pitching. It seems like they're in a similar boat to the Twins, where they are trying to trim. I'm not going to say shed. I'm going to say trim a little bit of payroll. They already traded Robbie Ray and his contract to the San Francisco Giants. So I chose him as kind of an analytical fit as opposed to something that I feel like is like likely to happen. And to highlight that this is the kind of caliber of arm I feel like that they need to make a really deep playoff run. So the way I see Gilbert is he's half a step above where Pablo Lopez was when the Twins acquired him last season. So Lopez was coming off back-to-back seasons of 2.3 F4 and 2.9 F4. When the Twins acquired him, they gave up Arise, who was coming up off a 3.1 F4 season. So I say all of that to say I have kind of two options for this trade, and they are both extremely expensive. Necessarily so. You're getting a pitcher who's not a free agent until 2028, and I would be really comfortable plugging him in like directly alongside Pablo at the front of this rotation. He's starting either game 1 or game 2 in a playoff series. Okay, you guys ready? I'm giving you two options. So the first one is the Mariners send Logan Gilbert to the Twins in exchange for Eddie Julien, Emmanuel Rodriguez, and Max Kepler.
Oof.
So that trade obviously creates holes for the Twins at second base and right field. We know Rocco likes his outfield defense. Here's my other option that I think I like a little better. Twins acquire Logan Gilbert from the Mariners for number 2 prospect Brooks Lee, outfielder Matt Wallner, and number 4 prospect David Festa. Curious for you guys' thoughts. What do you think of Gilbert as a dude? What do you think of either of those packages as like either like realistic value or as something the Twins would actually do?
You want to start or you want me to go?
You can go first.
I feel like without knowing exactly what the Mariners would need, I feel like they might getting 2 major league offensive players seems a little rich from the Twins' perspective, but I think a package for him would be more significant than the second package.
Mm-hmm.
In quality, I think. I think the quality of the first package is good. I'm just not sure that they would give a pitcher without getting any pitchers back, right? Because I think that's what teams try to do is they try to trade for pitching, especially the younger, the volume of pitching. I don't know if I could pull the trigger on that first deal. I don't think I could. The second deal, I certainly could. I just don't know that that's enough.
Okay, I'm pulling up the Mariners depth chart on Fangraphs. It has become my favorite one to use out of any of the sites since MLB.com has really downgraded their own version. So looking at what they have, they got Luke Raley a few weeks back in left field. They got Mitch Haniger back in the Robbie Ray trade. And I feel like once that trade was made, they weren't going to really get rid of anyone else because they can afford these other guys like Gilbert, like George Kirby, and then, Bobby Miller. There's 2 Millers. The other Dodger one, I can't remember. So I don't see them parting with it. So that first trade, I don't think you trade both Julien and Rodriguez. You got to keep one or the other. You can't get rid of both of them. The walk rates is beneficial to them. And their outfield depth, I think they do need more of a 4th outfielder or some guy who could really back up Mitch Haniger, not knowing how his health's going to be. So if I had to choose one of the two, it would be the second one, as hard as it is to say that, because then, yes, they'd be getting David Festa back as a potential replacement. Now, do we know if he's going to be Logan Gilbert caliber? No. But do the Mariners feel comfortable having someone like that? Yes. Brooks Lee, they definitely need more of that infield depth. I could see that being more realistic. Would it be very harmful to the Twins? Yeah, I think it would be a very harmful trade and a little too high, but...
Will you pull that Mariners depth chart back up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. So what I'm hearing you guys say is like first one's too rich, second one's probably too light. But let's look for a second. And This is not like specific to either of the trade packages. I think in general, Mariners have been like seeking offense this offseason. But let's look at for a second at their starting pitching depth. They've got Castillo, Kirby, Gilbert, Miller, Wu, DeSclafani, and Emerson Hancock, right? And so when that's too many guys, and obviously you need more than 5 guys over the course of a season. When I was looking for guys, I chose Gilbert because I wanted to write about him, but he was absolutely kind of a half step too good almost for what I was looking for, right? Because I think the reason that a year down the road the Lopez Arise trade looks and feels so good is obviously both of those players had awesome 2023 seasons, but the Twins really helped Pablo take it to like the next level such that he's close to uniformly thought of as like a top 10 right-handed pitcher in baseball now. And it's hard to find that exact caliber of guy this season, in my opinion. Most of the guys that I looked at as possible fits were either a half step better, like Gilbert, or someone like Miller or Wu or Hancock who isn't quite there yet, and not quite an established major league arm. So that's one of the challenges I had in kind of putting something together. But Jeremy, why don't we throw it over to you? Unless anyone has more Logan Gilbert thoughts.
I would love to share my trade. So I have been a fan of this pitcher since he was originally drafted by the Nationals, I think, in the second round. Let me just make sure I'm giving you the right information. Third round of the 2016 amateur draft. Rookie guy or high school guy that fell a little bit. I don't remember exactly what the issues were, but there were some issues that had him fall. The arm talent was certainly there. The Nationals then traded him just over a year later in a deal to get a closer. And then the A's turned around and traded this pitcher to the Marlins. So we're talking to the Marlins, and we're looking for 26-year-old left-hander Jesus Luzardo. And you could scrub my Twitter and find me trying to make a deal for him when he was an A. It took a while, right, for him to get to where he is right now in his age 25 season. 10-10, 3.58 ERA, 178 innings pitched, which was 78 more than the second highest, right? He threw 100 in 2022. 208 strikeouts last year, FIP 355, WHIP 122, 10.5 Ks per inning. And so for me, the added benefit here is one less year controlled than Gilbert, but he's a lefty. And right now the Twins and the left-handed pitching is just not a thing. So I would slot him right behind Lopez, and with the chance to continue to grow, right? All of this package, and I settled on one package, okay? And so it's funny because I think Jamie and I were kind of on the same wavelength. Initially, I was like, Julian would be the guy, but where's Julian going to play? You got Arise. Sounds like the Marlins are already listening on Arise. So I replaced Julian with Lee, right, as the headliner. I think any deal Emmanuel Rodriguez is a part of. And then it would be pitching. So I went Louis Varland and Kyle Jones. And then I don't think that would quite be enough because I'm not done with the Marlin side of things. Jose Miranda reclamation project, comp round B pick, and the Marlins also send the Twins Minnesota native Max Meyer back.
Oh.
And that's why that prospect package going to Miami is heavy. I mean, you're getting a number 30 prospect, a number 50 prospect, a second round pick, Louis Varland, who would slot into their rotation, Miranda, who is a buy low guy, and Kyle Jones, who would be another top 40-ish prospect for them. In return, you get Luzardo, and you get Max Meyer, who's coming off the injury, but still a top 100 guy.
I need some
Fire away.
processing time.
Fire away.
All right. Well, let's start off with the Marlins depth chart. Jose Miranda, Reclamation. It could work there. Jake Berger, who they acquired during last year's trade deadline, is good at either first or third, just like him. So I approve of Miranda in this trade, and obviously Josh Bell is more of a DH type at this point in his career. I think Cleveland definitely used him more as that before they traded him down Miami way. It's steep, but if you're getting Max Meyer back in that package, that makes it worthwhile. But he's had some struggles as he's had his first couple of major league starts and just staying healthy. So you've got to make sure you're getting something out of that too.
Well, and for me, it's either he's going to continue to be polished as a starter, or he's immediately transitioning to the bullpen.
Right.
I would prefer him as a starter long term, but I also think that he could be one of those. I mean, you got Duran, you got Jax, you got Stewart, you got Thielbar, you got Meyer, Alcala may be healthy. Like, if he's in the bullpen, you don't have to worry about that at all, right?
Mhm.
And that was why I was like, okay, I want Luzardo, but I'll pay a premium if I can get Max Meyer back.
I was like, felt like I knew where you're going until you just like casually threw Max Meyer into the trade as if it was like some like small add-in.
Because you were thinking, God, this is a lot to pay. This is too much to pay. Oh, we're getting a top 100 prospect back. So we can justify giving 2 top 100 prospects. We can justify giving the pitching depth, the starting depth that Varland is, and that comp pick is not one that doesn't have value as well, right?
Yeah.
And so the Marlins would be the type of team that would be like, yeah, we'll take the draft pick because we'll have that extra spending money, because they tend to get funky, right? They got Noblemeyer and Thomas White. They were able to manipulate the draft pools. If they have one extra pick with that money attached, that there's value to that for them that maybe other teams don't necessarily have.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Marlins have a really good track record of developing pitching. I really like the Louis Varland, not throw in, like adding him in, right? Because that's the kind of thing that just doesn't spring to mind as an option. I don't know about you guys, but when I think about trades, I tend to cluster certain guys, so I'm envisioning them trading and not get creative or think outside the box. So I like Varland as an option. Marlins have a good track record of developing pitching. Essentially, Meyer is his replacement as a like close to major league ready arm who is kind of high variance, whether they're going to be a starter or a bullpen piece. I like Miranda in that deal. I think. Recap it for me one more time. You said Brooks, Lee, and Erod.
Lee, Erod, Varland, Miranda, Kyle Jones, comp B.
Hefty
is right. I don't want to I hate trading draft assets.
Me too.
When you said that, I flinched.
I hate that, and I hate trading top prospects. But
yeah,
sometimes you just got to do it. Plus, it's 4 years of control. Well, 3 years of control. And he's going to get expensive, and it's going to be colder than anywhere he's ever pitched. Miranda going back basically home. Like, I just think there's and obviously those parts can all move, right?
Let me ask you this then. Let me ask you this. And I'm going to ask you to do some like mental gymnastics on the spot, which is not really fair. So you can tell me I don't want to do this if you don't. But can you alter the deal to just make it Twins pieces for Luzardo? And what do you think that looks like? Is that Brooks, Lee, Erod plus
can't be
one more piece?
No,
I agree.
No, I think you would replace Brooks, Lee, and probably have to take either Louis Varland and make him Bailey over, or take the combination of Kyle Jones, Miranda, comp B, and make that more valuable. So, maybe Kyle Jones becomes CJ Culpepper. Maybe Jose Miranda becomes someone that's got a higher ceiling and is a less problem. Maybe that draft asset that isn't a comp B is now last year's 3rd round pick or something like that. Because for me it was I didn't originally have Lee and Erod in it because I didn't have Meyer in it, right? But then it's like to get over the top, I think you got to have both. But now, what can you get back? And it's maybe Meyer's too much, but I think that's the second thing. The other thing I'm like is Jose Salas, someone that could go back to Miami and like he's another buy low guy, but he was successful there. And so I don't know. I mean, I toyed with a lot of things. Throwing in international lottery tickets. They have Rodriguez. They have Acuna. There's guys that I think teams would say, yeah, that tips the scale a little bit because potentially it could tip the scale a whole lot. And Miami, if I'm Miami, it's like if I can get some of these Dominican guys back, maybe we can fill up the stadium with people that are more local than the kid from Minneapolis.
So here's my big sticking point with yours with the Meyer option. I think I've like finally pinpointed it, right? So like we know this now famous like Falvey quote of like we want to build a sustainable winner, which is kind of trite and whatever. But as I was thinking through trades, one of the things I found difficult to do, right, was like I clustered guys in buckets. So like outfield guys, infield guys is another major league infield guys is another bucket. Top prospects is another bucket. I think they're going to be reticent to deal multiple guys from the same bucket, right? So if you're saying Brooks Lee number 2 prospect, Erod number 3 prospect in a system that's already top heavy, has 3 kind of consensus top 50-ish guys, you're taking 2 of those 3 away. I think that's going to be hard for the Twins to do. That's the thing I think that would be difficult to stomach for the org, and a lot of Twins fans would shudder at that. Although I also think a lot of Twins fans think you can trade nothing for something.
And for me, like as much as I wouldn't want to trade top prospects, I think you look at it and you say, hey, Royce Lewis at third base, Carlos Correa at shortstop, Eduardo Julian at second base.
Eduardo Julian, my favorite.
Like, you know what I mean. There's not like Brooks Lee is expendable. So I don't know.
I think if you're, I agree with that. Like, I don't think any player is not expendable for the most part if the right deal came along, right? But I do think if the Twins are going to get a starting pitcher of the caliber of Luzardo or Gilbert, and I think we can at least very loosely cluster them in the same bucket of like playoff starter, they're giving up either their number 2 prospect or their number 3 prospect as part of that deal, and probably a good major league regular player, whether that's Polanco or Kepler or whoever else, plus additional assets.
Because I didn't even mention Polanco in that deal, but he's got 1 year left. I don't know. But to me, it's an opportunity to play for now, and I think that's what you're doing by dealing all of that. And the thing is, saying Brooks Lee's expendable, adding Walker Jenkins to the thing, if he can play center, makes Emmanuel Rodriguez expendable.
And the thing about Erod, and I want to get to Theo, so I can tell he's just like ready. The thing about Erod too is I think his value is going to really shift significantly one way or another after the season, because he's going to play a AA, right? He's going to play a AA this season, and he's going to take his 68% contact percentage to AA. And Nick Nelson had a great piece at Twins Daily about Erod the other day. You should check it out if you haven't had a chance to read it. He's either going to learn to be a little bit more aggressive on some of those takes early in counts, and he's going to crush AA pitching, and then he's going to be a consensus like top 20 prospect, or the swing and miss is going to persist, and he's going to be fringy top 100 which then the value is gone. And so I do kind of agree that like if you're going to trade one of those guys, like the kind of inflection point for Erod is kind of now.
Yep, 100%.
All right, Theo, you're up, man.
All right. Well, you guys
That's
looked
our
at a
last.
couple of teams that are still trying to find their identity in terms of contention in 2024. The Mariners might regress, but they'll get back in contention by the end of the decade. The Marlins are the Marlins, we'll put it that way. But I decided, let's look at the teams we know are World Series contenders. Let's look at their weaknesses in their farm system and what their strengths are in their major league system. So I looked at the Atlanta Braves. I went to Atlanta.
Interesting.
And I was figuring, well, they got Chris Sale now, and what do they have a lot of in the minor leagues? Starting pitchers. If you look at a lot of their top 20, top 30 prospect rankings, top 5 guys are usually pitchers. So I was looking at that, trying to figure out who's their odd man out in their major league rotation right now. And that would be none other than this guy who was an all-star this year, Bryce Elder.
Wow.
Bryce Elder is an intriguing pick because he was dominant in the first half and came back down to earth in the second half. Now, what's his greatest weakness? His fastball, which is terrible to say, but he does not have velocity on it. But what does he have really good? A freaking good slider. That thing is phenomenal. Hitters cannot make contact with it. Is it the fastest slider in the world? No. But is it still a very good pitch? Yeah. And what do the Twins like if they can't get their fastball first pitchers? Sliders. So Elder makes a good fit because he's not even arbitration eligible for 2 more seasons. And yes, he's been an all-star. He made a start this postseason against the Phillies, got imploded, didn't even make it out of the 3rd inning. He's still someone who can be retooled. And what we've seen from pitchers like Bailey Ober or Louis Varland, they can at least get him from being a low 90s fastball average to mid 90s as a starter. And his slider, I don't know if it really needs much more work, but they can make it work. So I think he would be, at worst case scenario, if you go after this guy, he moves to the bullpen and he can become a quick 3-outs guy. But best case scenario, you got someone who is going to be in that middle of the rotation. Granted, his experience isn't there. It's not the Logan Gilbert caliber. It's not the Jesus Luzardo. But what you have to give up to get him is not going to be as expensive. Because what do the Braves not have in their minor league system? Good hitters.
Any hitters.
They do not. They got nothing down there. So what are you going to have to give up for that? You're not going to have to give up a major league outfielder or hitter in this case, really. So my proposal is you take Emmanuel Rodriguez and Tanner Schobel for Bryce Elder, and that's it.
How sure are we? I mean, you were not real sure in the explanation that he even remains a starter. He's not a strikeout guy.
He's not a strikeout guy. He's the old school pitch contact of the Rick Anderson school of pitching. So, I mean, you need someone who's going to eat innings. And yes, is it going too high on someone who's still young and can be redeveloped? Yeah, it is. I think you start him, you put him in that starting rotation. You see what he can work out in spring training. You work on getting that velocity uptick, but also just play to his strengths. Because if you look, I mean, his slider was thrown 35% of the time. Just shortly, his sinker was 37.7. I mean, he knows what he's comfortable with, but you got to have a good starter with a good fastball. Otherwise, you're not going to get outs. Well, it still adds to that pitching depth of worst case scenario, you move into the bullpen. But yeah, it doesn't get that playoff caliber starter that everyone's been craving for. But I think if you are someone who's attached to those prospects like Brooks Lee, or you don't want Polanco to go, or you don't want Julian to go, this might be the best way to do it. It's not the best, but it's something.
I have a lot of thoughts about this. First of all, this is the most creative by far, right? Because Atlanta Braves did not even enter my thick skull.
And they love trading.
They do love trading. They do love trading.
Can you bring up
I like.
Yes, I can.
I
And
like
then
that. I like the angle, right? Of like the Braves are all set with their big league roster as they like casually announce another 8-year deal via the team like social media. Like they don't need any offense. They're not going to need any offense for a long time. Looking at their starters now,
I
Morton,
think
Sale, Elder, Noah.
looking at their depth chart, the
Smith,
biggest
Smith.
question marks remain around Kelnick, Orlando Arcia, not Oswaldo, as Jeremy would not like, and Marcell Zuna just being who he is. Emmanuel Rodriguez would be a great fit in their minor league system if they get him. He's their number one guy. I think he's above AJ. What's his last name again?
Smith Shore.
Yep. Yeah, he's above him on almost every consensus top 100. So you're getting someone who's going to be your top prospect in your system. I think the Braves are probably a little bit better at their development of hitters than the Twins are, and they could probably play to his strengths. In long run, Marcell Zuna makes a mistake like he usually does. You got someone who you can ship in to replace him at DH and split time in the outfield when one of your other guys gets hurt. And Arcia, he had a great season. He finally had that potential we were expecting from him when he was a top prospect in the Brewers system. But where's the longevity there? You don't have to give up Brooksley to get someone like Bryce Elder, but you need to give up one of your top infield prospects. And I think Tanner Schobel's going to be that odd man out. And he's really got no future in this Twins infield with where the depth is in the major league roster and in the minor league system and who's knocking on the door. So at least in Atlanta, is he going to be a longevity shortstop for them? No. But is he going to have a better opportunity to be a long-term utility infielder for them? Absolutely. So that's where my logic came in.
Yeah, it all makes sense. I think my big hang up, right, is like in Elder as the guy, right? If the Twins are going to trade for a starter, to me, it has to be someone that you can confidently say they're going to fit into the top 3 guys in their rotation come playoff time. Otherwise, we're just like amassing depth, which we know they love to do. But
it's a long season. I will argue that too.
Yeah, but don't you think the Twins are in a position, even without adding right now, right? They've got what? Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Paddock, Varland, Festa, AAA, Simeon Woods Richardson, a AAA.
I mean, I would take Elder over Festa and Woods Richardson for sure.
100%.
Now.
Bring up the Twins roster.
Yeah,
just to see what they have for starting pitching. I mean, obviously we know, but just to see what they have.
That's what it looks like. They have Cantorino.
Well, that's not
that seems to be a trendy pick at the moment. I would love to ask Matt Cantorino what he thinks about that.
With how slow this offseason has been, how well projected the Twins are to be at the top of the AL Central at the trade deadline, I say you get someone like Bryce Elder. You have these experiments play out as long as you can in the cases of Paddock with coming back from a second Tommy John, which is a risk, but you just ride it out with the guys you have until then. And then depending where some of these other prospects value are, whether that is Brooksley or, you have those extra pieces you might be able to trade then, and then you get that guy who's hot there, and you guarantee yourself that number 2 guy behind Pablo Lopez for the last 2 months of the season. I think Elder, again, you accumulate that depth, and it's not a bad selection to do so. And Varland, and this is more me being very high on Varland as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the Braves would have any interest in Kyle Farmer?
I think they would. I think you could package them in there too, just to shed payroll. Now, granted, they are another team that is under contract with Bally, but Liberty Media, their ownership has a lot of stakes in other forms of media like Sirius XM. So I don't think their payroll situation is going to be different than the Twins. But I think taking on a Kyle Farmer, but then they're going to outright him 2 weeks later. So I'd say
outright Kyle Farmer.
They outrighted David Fletcher. They got rid of Marco Gonzalez. They've made so many weird moves this offseason. Like, oh, yeah, we'll take this guy. Just kidding. We're going to send him away 2 weeks later. So I think you just go with the 2 guys I mentioned where they're going to be cheap. They're going to play out for their major league careers, and they can save money on some minor league depth, which they have none at those hitters' positions.
Hmm. Yeah, man. I mean, you make a strong, like, logical argument about, like, why it makes sense from the Braves' perspective. I mean, if I was them and the Twins offer me Erod for Elder, Erod plus for Elder, I would say yes in less than half a second. I just, like, again, yeah. I think my only, like, big problem with it is I want to be confident that someone can start a playoff game, because right now I feel like the Twins' biggest rotation problem is you have probably 3 guys who could, but you can't be certain that they will
Outside of
start up
Lopez.
outside of Lopez, right? You've got Paddock, Ober, and Ryan in no particular order, who could position themselves with a good season to make you feel confident about them starting a playoff game, but there's no guarantee there. And I think if the Twins are going to make a trade for starting pitching, it's maybe going to be for someone half a step above Elder. But
No, I agree. But again, I'm high enough on Varland and comfortable enough believing him being a starter this season. And just given the current market of the offseason, granted, the trade deadline will be a lot more competitive with whoever is available. There's no questioning that. But I think after how this season went and 2022's trade deadline is a bit further behind them, they may get a Tyler Mahle type guy available again, or depending on who's still in their system, if they get someone like Bryce Elder, they could trade a Brooks Lee if he's not getting playing time and get the top guy out there, which I think I'd be a lot more comfortable with playing it out that way.
Right on, man. Jeremy, final thoughts?
We should do this more often.
A random mock trade episode?
Yeah. And then bring Theo on to come up with things that we would never think about.
Yeah.
The problem is Theo can't eat his pizza if he's on the camera.
No, that's the thing. Crazy work schedule. I gotta eat dinner at like 8:39. It's how it is. But anyway, I like that idea. I think it's the most realistic of our 3 to happen. I don't know about YouTube, but
that type of pitcher, I think is probably accurate. So do we all 3 trade Erod?
I don't think Jamie did.
He did in one of his.
I did in one of them.
Okay, so all 3 of us are comfortable with trading him.
Yeah.
Sorry, Nick. I know his article was like, no, we shouldn't trade Erod, and here we all are saying, yeah.
I think that's the beautiful thing with Erod, though. Like, it's such a delicate balance. Like, it's such like a Vegas 50-50, I think, the case for trading Erod, because if you do and he still struggles with contact, you look really, really smart. But if you do and he crushes in AA, you're going to look really, really dumb. And it's really hard to know what side of that he's going to fall down on.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch.
Will be fun to watch, no doubt. That was really fun. We also have one question, which do you guys mind if we do a quick question?
Yeah, we get time for a question.
So it's about the international prospect signing period window, which opened on the 15th. Strongly recommend people to follow Ben Badler of Baseball America, Jesse Sanchez at MLB Pipeline for much more depth there. Josiah Waldner asked a question, which I think is a good one. So he asks, how surprised were you that the Twins signed so many pitchers? So of their announced signing class so far, which was 11 when I last checked, Twins usually have one of the smaller classes, 5 out of 11 were pitchers in the signing window, when in the past they haven't touched them. Now, Josiah asked a lot of good questions, and I wanted to check into this one because I was a little dubious about the like don't touch pitchers piece. So I looked back at the last 2 classes, and they did sign 4 pitches in 2023 in the last class, all from Venezuela, and 1 in the 2022 international class. But given that Roman Barinas is new kind of at the helm, and Dan Hayes had a great piece in The Athletic about him this past week. Jeremy, do you think anything to read into that, or wait and see approach?
Well, I mean, you can't just not touch pitchers because you have to feel a team, right? All this tells me is that the Twins are going to either release more pitchers from the DSL roster or anticipate more of those DSL pitchers from last year going stateside. Because when you look at those rosters, they got to have 20 to 25 pitchers on those rosters, and they're going to. So I don't make anything of it at all. The amount of pitchers that pitch it for the Dominican Summer League that never make it to the what do you call it, the FCL now?
Florida Complex League.
Yeah, it's a huge percentage of guys that never make it up. So I don't know if they're like, hey, we got some guys that are moving up, we got to fill these spots. That would be how I would explain that away. But I don't. It's.
I have one more ad there. I think it goes back to our conversation last week, right? Where we said, how come there's no pitchers in these top 40 or top 50 or top 30 lists? Because they're 16-year-old boys and they haven't developed enough to throw that hard yet. And a lot of the elite tools are with hitters. I think that's a big part of it too, is we see the Twins, 2 guys in the top 40 that they signed, Diber de los Santos and Eduardo Beltre, and they're hitters. And we kind of make a leap there that they're not in the market for pitchers, when the reality is that there's always a pitching contingent in their international class. But I do think it's a good point to bring up that, like, year over year now, with someone new kind of at the helm for the international prospect recruiting and signing, it is going to be interesting to monitor trends where they're signing guys from, number of pitchers and hitters, size of the class, and some of those outcomes might be different moving forwards. But I think we'll need a good 2, 3, 4 classes before we can say anything more definitively there.
I'd agree.
Alrighty, I think that's going to do us for today. This was really fun. I enjoyed this kind of ad hoc trade episode. Friendly reminders, ways that you can support the show. Retweet the show when it comes out. Download it from your preferred podcast platform of choice. Big thank you to producer Theo, not only for producing, but also for being on the show, man. This was fun. We got to do more with the 3 of us.
That we do.
In front and behind the camera.
That's right.
Multi-talented.
Man of many talents.
I am on a camera almost every day I'm at work, so this is not out of my realm.
Perfect.
Coming up on the horizon, we are going to get, it is prospect ranking season. We are going to get into our own top prospect lists for each of the organizations that we cover. That's coming up. Potentially a player interview on deck in the next couple of weeks.
Have you guys submitted your top 30 prospects to Seth yet?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we all have taken care of that then.
Yes, sir. I don't want to get in trouble with the law.
No.
All right, man. That'll do us for this week. Appreciate you guys for checking us out. Appreciate you guys for listening. Until next time. Later.
See ya.